Raced out here, who's our career development advisor through the College of Engineering. Is going to present to you about some of the services, some of the things you'd be thinking about when you're exploring jobs and internships. But at the beginning, a lot of you were asking questions about what are internship opportunities looking like. So today's your opportunity to develop some strategies, and then the second part of our seminar table will be a student internship panel. So some of our second-year students have agreed to talk about their experience with you, what worked for them, what they did, etc. So make sure you ask a lot of questions today. Cool. I'll hand off to Ray.
Thank you. All right, so my name is Ray Stout. I am one of the career development advisors here within the College of Engineering. Something that's really unique to CU Boulder is that you actually have access to 2 career services offices. So most in the United States, the way we do career services is you typically have 2 different options. You either have in your college or a centralized model. Here, you have access to both. So if you're taking if you happen to be hanging out in Fleming a lot, you love the Idea Forge, you can go to the C4C and meet with me there, or you can meet with me here at the Engineering Center on the other hallway. And so that's actually very unique, because the great part about that is means I also have the complete support of a larger team versus having just a small team that I'm working with. So that's something that's very unique to CU Boulder, and it's something I feel pretty proud of. And the other aspect is actually if you graduate, you have access to our services for the rest of your life. And that is also a very unique thing. I can go to my alma mater and pay $100. They'll review my resume, and they'll do it digitally, and that's all I will get. And I had to pay $100 for it. It is free here for life, unlimited, whatever service you might need. So those are things to keep in mind. So I'm going to talk very, very, very briefly on internship and job search strategies, because I want to leave some time to answer questions. But something that I want to point out to this is a lot of this is a really customizable kind of experience. There is literally no one set or right way to find a job. So you could find a job by going through a placement agency. You can find a job by connecting with someone who already works in that company. You can find a job by applying online. You can find a job by talking with your professor. You can find a job by talking to your classmate. You get the picture, right? There's no one way to find a job or an internship. And that's actually one of the biggest challenges, is because there is no one way. A lot of folks think there is some right way. Maybe they're not doing it right. There's something they're missing. And really, your best strategy is to understand who you are first. So if you come in and meet with me, one of the number one things I will say to you is, if you ask me a question, I'll say, well, that depends. I think a lot of folks think if they come in, I'll give them a magic wand answer of like, hey, yes, do this, 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 and voila, you will have a job. Unfortunately, that's just not how it works. You could actually be doing all of the right things. I've met with many students who have done everything, quote unquote, right, checked every box, and they still don't have that internship yet. That can happen too. We don't know why. A lot of it can be market trends or just not the right situation at that right moment. Has anyone ever heard, I'm assuming most of you, but have any of you heard of chaos theory, right? Sciences, chaos theory? Okay. The idea that the world is a chaotic place, but there's also patterns within it. There is literally a chaos theory of careers. Most career theorists believe that you are making opportunities exist for you out of random events that occur. So that's the hard part. In this internship and job search process, you have control over certain things, but you also don't have control over that employer calling you back, right? So that's part of it, is understanding there's going to be some challenges. So that's why the number one key piece when you're starting is understanding who you are and what's your brand. And the reason for that is your brand is compelling. Again, there's an entire room of you sitting in this program, but I bet if I talk to each one of you, you might be interested in different things, from security to network to wireless. You have different jobs you're applying for. You might have still some targeted employers. You might all want to work at Qualcomm, but if I talk with you, you might all want to work there for different reasons. I have been doing this work for almost 10 years. At this point, I have worked with thousands of students and alumni and employers, and I have never heard the same story twice. So I can tell you for a fact, we'll not have the same thing to say. That's what makes us stand out. So the first thing you want to think about is putting yourself in the employer's perspective, put yourself in their shoes, and think about what are your KSAs. That's what a lot of folks, especially government, will call your knowledge, your skills, and your abilities. This can be from previous work experience, it could be from clubs, it could be from internships, it could be from tinkering at home, it could be from setting up your own baking business where you sold cupcakes to raise money. It does not have to be from a formal employed position. Frankly, an employer does not actually care if you were paid for it, they just cared if you gained skills from it. And I think a lot of times we think about it has to be this formal experience. And your interests and your personality do matter. How many of you have worked a full-time job or internship before? Yeah. So how many hours a week were you actually realistically working in those spaces?
How many is not working?
I'm hearing some laughter. Were most of you working at least 40 hours a week? Were some of you working 50 hours a week? Were some of you working 60 hours a week?
So much.
My wife got averaged 70 hours a week at her, she's an engineer, she averaged 70 hours a week 2 years ago and got an award for working the most hours in the company because they were short-staffed. But that was not uncommon. Folks would work that many hours. So 70 hours a week. If you think about that, how many hours am I seeing my partner awake? Not so much, right? Not a ton. During that season, she would leave at, she's geotechnical, so she worked construction. She'd leave at 6 in the morning, she'd come back at 1 a.m. She worked all her daylight hours, and then she'd go and do more work. You won't do that in this type of work, but you might put in a lot of hours. So again, think about this. If I'm not seeing her as much as she is seeing her coworkers, I probably want to like you to some extent, probably not the same way I like her, but I want to like being around you, right? If you think about it, your workers, you will spend 90 to 120,000 hours of your life at work. Unless you strike it rich, and then we all want to know how you've done it, and share your wealth. Just kidding, do whatever you want to do with your wealth. But that is just the reality. That is how the U.S. economy especially is set up. If you think about capitalist economy, we're generating product, we're generating money, you will be at work. So that is why your personality at the end of the day is actually usually the number one reason you get the job, is the fit. So do you fit with the company? So this is the common traits of students who get internships, and you will see all of these, the top rated things are all what we call soft skills. Can you problem solve? Can you work on a team? Do you have work ethic? What are your communication skills? And that's again because we're going to spend more time with you than we're going to spend with our families and our loved ones. And so we want to like you. So if you've made it to the interview stage, you are qualified on paper. They're literally seeing about fit. Do you fit well with them? Or do you bring, a lot of companies will talk about like a cultural add. Do you bring something different to the team they don't already have? So this way, if you can know yourself and know what you have to offer, and this is different. This is not how every job economy works, but in the U.S., you're marketing yourselves. You're talking very openly about what you have to offer, but connecting it back to the employer. So again, thinking about the why it's relevant. So this is my personality piece, and it's relevant to you because. So like one of my common ones I'll talk about in interviewing is I am the type of person, my strengths lend themselves to, I love to get people on board with projects I'm actively excited about. I love to make my team members want to get involved. I want to go out and find resources and support. So I have written grants, I've gotten grant funding before. It's things I like to do if I'm passionate about it. So I tell that to an employer, and how's that applicable to you? If you have an idea or a mission your office is moving towards, I'm going to make everyone else get on board with that mission. And it's true. I've been through many offices who've gone through transition, and I've gotten to help support that. So that's a soft skill that is not any of my hard skills that I have, none of my technical skills, none of my knowledge of career counseling theory. That's a soft skill. So that's actually what employers are typically looking for. What this is from the National Association of Colleges and Employers. Most large companies and every public institution is part of this association. I've been to their conference before, sponsored by Central League, Audi, Cisco, and literally they had an Oscar nominee was one of the keynotes. It's kind of, I call it like going to a massive concert because it's a bunch of large engineering companies who want to put on a nice show. So there's a lot of song and dance. So if you look at this, a score of 5 is the top. So critical thinking and problem solving is one of the top pieces. I will say this is all industries combined. If you look at just the engineering companies, leadership does move up. So leadership is a huge piece for them. So talking about this idea of your fit, your personality, this is why the online job search function is broken. So how many of you have found a job by not knowing any single person in the company you've applied along here in the United States? Okay, about 5 of you. That's actually pretty good odds. So the average yield rate is 5%. And the reason for that is because the average company gets 250 applications to one online job opening. That's the average company. Google gets 3.3 million applications a year. In fact, Google now limits your ability to apply to multiple jobs for some of their positions. The caveat to that is internships. A lot of companies know internships are a great way to get diverse talent, so that it can be still a good strategy for internships, but you want to try other things. So here is kind of how it looks. Is the online application is the number one strategy you're told about typically from your peers, your professors, even employers. If you talk to an employer at the career fair, they're going to tell you apply online. And it's because it's the legally binding aspect. It is, however, the last place an employer looks. The first place an employer looks is internal. Well, you can't be internal, right, until you're there. So what else can you tap into is some targeted resources and referrals. So I can tell you the average for a position, like the last position I served on here at CU Boulder, we had 200 applications. And that was for a higher education position. We don't always have a ton, just depends on what you're doing. Targeted resources, when I can look in and see who is applying to what in Handshake, the most applications I've ever seen in Handshake was 60 for a position. So if you're thinking 200 versus 60, you have much better odds. Also, if you think about it, some of our employers donate tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars to CU. They want to connect those CU students who are benefiting from the scholarships in senior design projects. And one of our programs here, engineering management program, is literally sponsored by Lockheed Martin. Doesn't this program have a sponsor, an industry sponsor?
A couple. Video group. Who sponsored the project?
Well, I was going to say, a key point here is Zayo wants to hire CU students.
So there's Zayo, Cable Labs, there's several.
Yeah, I was going to say, Qualcomm has hired quite a few students from this program. So that is, talking about Handshake is a targeted resource. They want that return on that investment. Referrals, meeting someone at an on-campus event through a class, a career fair, a show and tech, tabling, however you might engage with a person on campus, has a 67% yield rate. So right, online 5%, targeted resources and on-campus recruiting, 67% yield rate. Having an internal connection is an 80% yield rate. So it's your highest yield rate. But it's the longest game. So meaning if you're building connections with folks, that can take months to really cultivate and build that relationship, because you're just trying, it's like building a friendship. You don't usually become best friends with someone overnight. Some people do, but most people don't. When you're making a cold connection with someone, it takes you time to cultivate it. So you are talking about, these are different time factors. So what does this break down to? This is from Silk Road. Silk Road is one of the major applicant tracking systems. They had 13.8 million applications go through it in 2017. This is the most kind of cleaned up data we have is from 2015. They'll have the 2017 data actually probably right about now. Usually I gather this over the holiday break. But if you'll see employer referral, the least amount of 18% of the interviews come from employer interviews, but yields 22% of the hires. Search engine, so applying online, 25% of interviews, but only 16% of hires. So you can kind of see, so the two main ones that have more hires per interview are your recruiter sourced and your employer referral. So recruiter sourced is when those folks come to campus. So I get questions from students sometimes saying, what's the importance of talking with a recruiter? That's their job, is to find talent, so that if they connect with you, it's just, the challenge is figuring out how to leverage that relationship in a way that works for you. But yeah, question?
Internal recruiters or external recruiters?
External, yeah. So here it breaks it down, internal and external. Yeah.
Don't external take a cut of your salary, or?
Oh, sorry, yes, internal to the company. I thought you were meaning internal hires.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no. So it would be like a recruiter from Qualcomm would be finding someone, yeah. So what you're talking more about is like headhunting or a staffing agency. Headhunting, yes, they take a cut of your salary. And usually in the US at this point, headhunting is more mid-level roles or senior. Staffing agencies are temporary. So if you're really struggling to find a job, you can always use a staffing agency. Pros and cons, you're not their client, the employer is their client. So they just place you, they don't really give you say. Or well, they place you with an interview, you have to still wow in that interview. And so that's the hard part, is that you're not their client. They don't, you actually, and it's not uncommon, you won't even know who you're interviewing with or what company the offer is coming from, because they don't care that you care. You've got to put it down to brass tacks. A lot of students will ask about placement because that's common in other countries, but it's just not common here in the US. So from that SAFE survey, internal sources of hire, where are they coming from? Obviously 50% are from an employer referral or a current employee, but again, 36 is an employer referral. You can tap into that, especially at the master's level. You likely have experience through internships or other work before you came back. That employee who brings you in makes money. In fact, often they make $3,000 to $5,000. And then if you look, recruiter sourced, again, is 19%, so quite a bit. If you look top external sources, so everyone always asks me what job board should I use. If you're using any job board, use Indeed. 40% comes straight from Indeed. Keep in mind, college and campus recruiting is 4% here because of the fact that it's just it's a small target of the population. But if you break down within the college, if you engage on college campuses with recruiters, it's only grown. In this survey, it was 50%, 52%. In the 2017 data, they've cleaned that up a little bit at 6. That's where we get that 67% number. So it's only going up. So I'm actually just switch to this. So if what I'm saying, if the one big takeaway you can have is one of the best ways to find an internship or job is through networking, it is to just figure out how networking works for you. There's no right way. Again, you're building a friendship, essentially. So the best way I think about it is, I'm assuming many of you might have heard about this program through some sort of family friend or advertisement that compelled you to be interested in it. So say you had a family friend who was already here, you probably didn't email that family friend and say, hey Jose, I know you're at CU Boulder studying in the TCP program. Can you get me in? What do I need to do to get in? Thanks for all your help. I can't wait to hear more from you. Thanks for helping me get into the college. Right? Your friend who's a student here has no say if you get into the college or not, but maybe you respond back and you instead that you phrase that email of, hey Jose, I know you study in this program. I'd love to hear more about it. Can you tell me what you like? What are some of the things that you find enjoyable about what you're learning? What strategies did you use to get into the program? Now you have actionable information. Jose can provide you that information. So I think a lot of people immediately jump to asking around work. Can you get me, what does it take to get an internship? What are you looking for? Or what positions do you have? They're immediately going to tell you to go apply online. And I'm sure many of you have heard that at a career fair or an event here on campus. We'll go apply online. It is because it's the Equal Employment Opportunity Law. So what that means is, what if I said to everyone, oh, you all sat in the front row, great job. Here are some job offers. You all now have an internship this summer at Qualcomm. I'll just keep using this as an example. So you all have internships. Sorry, none of you sat in the front row. No internships for you. Is that equal? Do all of you want to work at Qualcomm? I've taken literally nothing into consideration here, right? So equal employment opportunity is what we engage with in the United States. The law, it's the law. That's why we have to have applying online. Because what if you folks back here really want to work in Qualcomm? You want that internship opportunity. I cannot deny it from you. So if you come to me and you ask me, hey, what do you want to do? Or ask me what kind of positions I have, the easiest thing for me to say to know I've said the same thing to every single one of you is to say apply online. But if you come from it seeking information, I'm not thinking about equal employment opportunity law, I'm thinking about mentoring. I'm thinking about guiding. I'm thinking about helping. And sure enough, I'm going to give you more actionable information. So when you're networking, that's what you're doing, is you're trying to make connections. So one of the best things you can do is ask open-ended questions. People love talking about themselves. People love talking about and giving advice. It's just kind of the human way. Ask for an introduction. If you have a friend who works with someone that you're really excited about, ask that friend for an introduction. So where can you do this? Obviously, connecting with recruiters on campus is really great. It's only great if you can follow up. So asking for a business card, ask for an email address. Then some of the other things like LinkedIn and informational interviewing, this is a way for you to connect with people, again, from that information-seeking approach. So on LinkedIn, you can go to linkedin.com/alumni, and it will tell you where all 200,000 plus alumni from CU Boulder, where they all are. And it's literally a searchable database. So you can go find, maybe you really want to work in London for a specific company, and you're like, I really want to get to London. I think that sounds really fun. You can go search by location, search by skill set, search by company name, search by degree title. It's all a keyword search. That's just on the LinkedIn alumni page. There are 40,000 engineering alumni, and they're really growing that. So if you, again, there's some targeted resources for you. So when it comes to your internship, the biggest kind of tips I have is start with yourself first. What are your interests? What are your personality traits that you want to use in a workplace? We don't always want to show up all of ourselves at work. What are the skills you want to be using? What knowledge do you want to be using? So think about yourself first. Understand who you are. Who's doing that? Find those employers, and then think about what connections do you have in that company? How can you build connections? Are they coming to campus? Can you ask a professor if they know any alumni there? So kind of step one is understanding yourself. Step two is understanding where you might want to go, what your options are. And then step three is creating that action plan. So it's kind of putting it all together. So I know I went really fast, but now I've got a little bit of time for questions. I pulled up our information, so you can access us in drop-in hours or via appointment or email. So we have appointments. You can make them through Handshake, or you can email this email address, and we can get you set up with an appointment, or provide a quick resume review, salary negotiation, maybe help you develop that internship strategy. So with that, what kind of questions do you have? How many of you feel prepared to be going out and finding an internship? Oh, awesome. Okay, a few of you. It's great. What are some of the things that some of you, those of you who are like, I'm not sure I feel ready yet, what are some things you still need? Yeah? What did you say? You want to share that? Well, I'm here the whole day, I'll be here through the panel, and I'll stay a little after if you have specific questions. You have access to our services, like I said, for life. If you want to stick with just applying online, you can. I'm going to let you know you're going to have to probably put out about 1,000 applications. So thinking about, I don't personally have the mental stamina to take 1,000 silences, because that's essentially what you're going to get. 5% is how much you hear back. So I just don't have that, but some folks do, and that's their strategy. On the flip side, you could put out 10 applications where you have connections, and you could have a yield, you could hear back from almost every single one of them. So I usually say find something in between, apply online, try to do an informational interview or do a connection or cold email, try to attend an event or a lecture or a professional association, try some different things. So any last minute questions for the group before I turn it over to the panel? All right, well, hopefully this was helpful. But like I said, this is our information. Please feel free to reach out. This email goes directly to me. So with that, I'll turn it over to the panel.
Let's give Ray a round of applause. All right, student panelists, seats are yours. Come on up.
Oh, see, all the ones who already have the internship got the internship.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So we'll just ask them some general questions. I can moderate, and then if you have any questions, we'll do it afterwards. All right. All right. So first up, everybody, Ari, we'll start with you. Introduce yourself and where you interned this past year. Sorry. Oh. Yeah. Who said that? Thank you.
I think use the handheld one.
Oh, right, yeah. I didn't see that. There you go.
Speak into it. Not down here, up here.
Hello everyone. I'm Arya and I'm in the second year of the ITP program, which is now the TCP program. I interned in the summer at Charter Communications, which is better known by the brand name Spectrum, which is something you might be familiar with. I worked as a security engineer intern, and some of the stuff which I worked on was security automation, vulnerability scanning, and remediation of the found vulnerabilities.
Hey guys, my name is Akshay. I interned as a software engineer at Versa Networks in San Jose, California. So my responsibilities and my roles were more related towards network engineering per se. But so yeah, I interned from May till August 2019 in California, and from there on I am continuing my work from remote location in Boulder. I am continuing my work with Versa.
Hi everyone, my name is Prathana, and this summer I interned with Facebook at the Fort Worth Data Center, and my roles and responsibilities were just keeping the data center up and running, and we deployed around 300 T capacity in the backbone of Facebook in the Fort Worth Data Center, and along with that I also took some automation project for Facebook, and I also was part of one of the DevOps project there.
Hi guys, I'm Nick. I'm a second year ITP. This summer I continued at LASP. It's actually a lab on campus, on East Campus. We do a lot of aerospace stuff, handling spacecraft on all sorts of planetary missions. I do mostly system administration, a little bit of automation, and some feature improvements there.
All right, Nick, we'll start with you. What was successful for you when looking and applying to jobs?
Definitely having someone on the inside. So I had a friend and roommate who already worked there in a different division, but talking to him, he helped introduce me to the person that I ended up interviewing with and who was my first manager there, which was very useful. Just being able to know kind of beyond just doing the typical research of, you know, going to their website and figuring out what products they work on, but actually talking to someone who uses those products was very valuable in kind of catering my resume and my cover letter and interview to that.
For me, actually, we had Facebook come on campus last year, and they actually come every year, and just talking to them, understanding the job, the role, that really helped me. But they definitely asked me to apply online, which I did. So just start applying online, and it's not just about applying, but you should also be able to convert it into a potential offer. So just, you know, be clear with your basics and try to crack the interview. I think that's what really worked for me.
So for me, I guess the best source to get an interview opportunity is with LinkedIn. So please be sure, rest assured that if you since you are in the first year and you are starting early, it's good for you. So please start sending out a lot of invitations to potential employers, to all the HR people. Do make a target of at least 50. Make a list of the top 10, 20 companies you want to intern with. Start looking out for their HR people, the people who are like managers, there are a couple of teams. Say for at Facebook, there might be different teams. Some might be like a production engineering team. Some might be at Facebook infrastructure. Look out for people who are working there. Connect with them. Maybe they might be managers or they might be HR people. But I guess that will get you through. Yes, you on the side, you can keep applying for applications online, on Handshake, on LinkedIn. But I guess networking via LinkedIn, I guess that will definitely get you an internship opportunity.
Yes, I kind of agree with Akshay that LinkedIn is a better choice rather than applying online. But I think what will work well for you is know what kind of role you want to get into and what are your top companies. Knowing what you can really want from yourself as what are strengths and weaknesses might take time, that is fine. But I think all of you should have a top company at least wherein you want to work for, and you can start making connections right away. So even if you don't know what you want to do, you can ask, like as Ray said, you can do an information interview of what their typical day looks like, and then decide whether that appeals to you. If not, you can look for and make connections with different teams from those companies. But the only way to not go about having those 1,000 online applications is have a list of companies which you want to work for. And I think you guys are just getting started here, so you've got a lot of time. And make those LinkedIn connections, ask what they do, and ask what skills you can work on. And that is how you can develop a relationship, so that when the right time comes, you can kind of ask them for a referral.
Yeah, we'll just pass the mic down to Shreyas who showed up. Shreyas, just introduce yourself, where you worked, and what your job does.
All right. So hi everyone. My name is Shreyas, and I am from the wireless subtrack of the telecommunications program. So during the summer, I interned at Cable Labs as a software engineering intern, and I got to work on 3 projects during my internship. And during the course of internship, I worked on like majorly Python matplotlib plots to display dynamic data, and then C++ codes to program the hardware. And then there was one small project of network automation as well, which involved creating an application to monitor like DOCSIS cable modems. So overall, it was a productive summer, and I had fun.
Hey, Shreyas, what worked for you when finding your internship? What strategies worked for you to secure it?
Yeah, so there's no like one right way to do it. There are different people stick to different strategies, like applying online, going through career fairs, networking with people. For me, the most effective was, and my current internship during the summer was through career fair event. So it was like I met the HR, and then the HR got me the contact of the person who was looking out for that role, and I emailed that person my resume, and then he got me into the interview process. So what I feel is the more like the close you get to the person who's looking out for that role in that company is a better approach rather than making online applications. I mean, that is not wrong, but it might be something that can give you results and cannot, and it might be time consuming to get calls that way. So try to make connections through career fairs, make connections on LinkedIn, email them, tell them that you had met them. They'll obviously remember. Pass on your resume, and keep taking follow-ups that if there's an opening, and if the interview process has started. If not, when can I get to know about the further update? So that way you could be in a really good position of putting yourself into the interview process, and from there onwards, it's just you and your skill set to crack the interviews.
Pass it to Nick. Nick, what were some of the projects you work on currently at LAS?
So one of the big things I've worked on is there's a lot of teams at LAS, but one of the team I'm on is operations. So I'm in the operations software, and then there's the people who actually provide kind of the human operating system for spacecrafts. And spacecrafts downlink data. That data has telemetry points, and they need to review the points to know whether something's going wrong on various subsystems. So one thing that I did was help kind of streamline that process, make it a little more modern, and support new missions that are added. So that's one of the big things. There's a lot of old software that we use that has less than stellar coding practices that need kind of maintenance. So I handle a lot of bug fixes as well.
So I worked on, as I said, I worked on 3 projects. One of them was adding more capacity into the Facebook's data center. And the fun part was that they have their own network gears, they design their own switches. So just working on that, working at hardware level, and you could actually see the server that runs WhatsApp, the server that runs AI, the server that actually runs Facebook. So just being able to see that hardware and break fixing it was really fun. The second project was, so at Facebook they have hundreds of tools. One of the tools was a basic ping sweep across all of the entire data center, and we were just checking for the health check for the top of the rack switches for the entire data center. So that particular tool lacked some error correction, and there was some better improvement that was needed for it. So I worked on helping to improve that. And as part of my DevOps project, they had this console. So at Facebook, they have Chef configuration management to manage all of the devices across the entire Facebook and in the data center. So we had these console switches which were not part of the data center, and they were provided by different vendor, and it was quite challenging to actually have Chef agents on them and make them work. So I was working very closely with the vendor and the operating system team there and trying to get Chef running on those console switches so that we can do remote configuration on them.
So Versa is a SD-WAN company basically. What that means is they provide their solutions to major internet service providers across USA. So as a part of my project, I basically did 3 projects during my summer. First project was related to data-driven SLA management. Now, most of you might not understand what an SLA management is, but to give you a gist of it, it's basically I had to use Python to create automation scripts to basically send probes across a path, basically a route or a path, what we say, and to check the health of that path, whether it's giving the required bandwidth, it's giving the required latency, and is it up all times. So that was one of my first project. Second project was a VRRP, which is basically to test redundancy between 2 branches, or it can be anything in networking. So again, I had to use Python to develop an automation script to test that feature of Versa's software platform. The third part was related to BGP. So we had this topology called as spoke, hub, spoke. Basically, it's a 3-tier topology in networking, in where at the top you have the head end, which is called as which is basically comprises of your SDN controller. Then in the middle layer you have all the hubs, and then the last layer is the spoke. So I had to basically test all the BGP connectivity between all the 3 layers. So that was a part of me, and I'm currently continuing my project with SHHS, and on the side I have been working with something called as VOE workflows. So that's where I'm continuing my project right now.
So I also use Python for a little bit of automation. Every week the Department of Homeland Security releases a list of newly discovered vulnerabilities. So what I did was scrape that website to have only our relevant vendor information. That way I send out that information as an email so that our team remains abreast of what is going on. I also did automation of a little bit of threat intelligence. There's a lot of feeds online which has known IP addresses of command and control botnet servers. So what I did was I scraped those websites, and then using XBGP have those IP addresses announced as a next hop into our intrusion detection mechanism, so that if any traffic is coming or going from to those websites, it goes through the intrusion detection mechanism. Also what I did was vulnerability remediation. So the team which I worked with was the lab team for Charter. What they do is they develop or propose solutions which other teams in operations use. So what I did was of the network switches of those labs, I scanned those using commercial tools and looked for vulnerabilities results, and if depending on the priority of those vulnerabilities, have solutions to either mitigate or remediate them. Also developed a MACsec POC. MACsec is basically a layer 2 encrypted tunnel between which was developed as a proof of concept. They are thinking of implementing it as between the DOCSIS cable modem which goes to your house at the next hop, so that all the data between those 2 hops is not tapped and remain safe.
We'll leave a couple minutes for questions from students. So the last question would be, what is your most memorable moment of your internship?
So at Cable Labs, it's like every summer they organize a summer conference, and it's generally hosted at location Colorado, which is a keystone. And so my memorable moment during my internship was to attend that summer conference there. It's like a 2 to 3 day event, and during that event there are like keynote speakers giving away, telling us about their experiences. Then there are innovation workshops, showcases, and so it was like really good experience and a good platform to network among industry professionals. And in addition to that, your stay as well as like food is sponsored, and the entire location and the stuff was like, it was like a really good experience. So certainly I would take that as one memorable moment or something to remember from my internship, which I really enjoyed.
So this is I guess this last summer was my third summer at LASP. So the first summer, all the student employees go through kind of a training for a period, and the next summer when the summer started, the manager gave us, the people who stayed, the opportunity to develop our own training and help kind of like teach what we thought were valuable skills to work at the company. So being given an opportunity not just to be kind of like an employee, but also take a step up and take on a little bit more leadership was super valuable. Also gave me a lot more respect for some of the instructors that I've had here. So.
For me, it was definitely going to Menlo Park and seeing the Facebook headquarters and experiencing that culture. It's huge and it's amazing. At the data center, it was definitely the work, the exposure that I got. Like, even one thing I really liked about Facebook is that even though I was an intern, if I wanted to take a lead on any project, I was allowed to do that. Like for instance, the DevOps project was completely my brainchild, and they let me lead that project, and I had mentors all the time guiding me and supporting me. Then another, as Shreyas mentioned, we had housing and food, which was, we lived a pretty luxurious life. So I think all of that was really memorable, and even the team that I got to work with, the people that I got to work with, and the network that I was able to build, that was really fun, and I could add something more and valuable to my resume, and I learned some pretty good skills, so that was the fun part.
So for me, it's the best part is when you develop your skills during your first year and you get to apply them in industry. I think that's the best part, and even better than that actually is when your manager and when the founder of the company acknowledges you. So so for me, the best moment was when the founder of the company, he acknowledged my work, and when my manager conveyed what I did and how well I did it to the upper management. So I guess that was a very good part it was amazing. I loved that part. And another thing is that you get to interact with a lot of people and from different ages, they are of different experiences, and to gel up with them, bond with them, I think it's the best part. So that's that.
Yeah, I agree with Akshay. Apart from my work, I think what I took most out of my internship was the feedback which I got from my mentor and my manager, and I had a great relationship and a great time with them. Especially with my mentor, we had a lot of banter going back and forth every day, and at the end of the internship, I got a cookbook on how to cook Indian food, which was real nice.
All right, we'll leave some questions to the audience. Got in the back first.
How many places did you apply to? How many applications did you make?
Is everybody? Yeah, it's everybody.
I would say around 20, because I pretty much wanted to know which companies I wanted to work for and what kind of roles which I wanted to get. So I did not make a lot of applications, but if you don't know what you want to do and if you don't know where you want to work, you have to at least, as Ray said, like 1,000 applications. A lot of people have done that, which is, I wouldn't say not advisable, which is something which you have to do, but if you have a plan, then you can reduce on that count.
So I agree with Arya. 1,000 is not such a great number. You should probably narrow down your companies. Basically I applied to around, I guess, 30 companies, and eventually I got down like 2 offers. So that's very small odds, but then you'll have to take your chances. So be sure to apply, but then narrow down the companies which you want to apply for and where you actually want to work. It shouldn't be like a waste of time for the employer and for you as well, if you know that that role is not of no use to you.
For me, I think it was around 15. But one thing that really, like one tip that I would like to give is just like create an Excel sheet and maintain the records of all the companies that are applying, because sometimes if you apply to a lot of companies, you even forget that you had applied to the same company. And as in career services, they said that you have limitations to how many companies you can apply. So if you've already applied to 3 positions, you may not be able to apply anymore. So just be careful about that. And yeah, I mean, yeah, that's
So I guess I was kind of a mix of lucky and lazy. I didn't want to apply to places online. I got kind of sick of being told that at career fairs, so I only followed on leads that I actually knew someone working there. So I applied to like 2 or 3. I got lucky, one of those panned out.
For me, as like Pratna mentioned, maintaining an Excel sheet, so I did exactly that. So I have like pretty crisp, clear statistics to share. I applied to 79 companies. I got 6 call-ups and 1 offer.
I believe we have one question. Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I forgot the point.
My bad. Push in front.
Yeah. How much did you get paid for your internship, both in financial compensation and benefits?
That will vary depending on the company and the rules within the company. So
I mean, you specifically.
Me?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I can disclose that because that is kind of...
I guess what I'm asking is, was the money and the benefits that you received enough to live on while doing the internship, not if you proceeded into a full-time position?
They won't do unpaid internships, but they will definitely pay enough.
Sorry, what was that?
They will definitely pay you. It depends on the company, but it should be good enough to live on.
So could you guys give a range? Like, is 15 to 20 not reasonable for a master's student? Should we be looking for like 20 to 30?
That is not something which should be on the top of your criteria, to be honest, because it all depends on the company structure. If you go for a company which is a startup, they might not be able to say pay $60 an average. Facebook or XYZ company might pay you, but at that company you might get an experience which is better than you might get from other companies. So I don't think that should honestly be a criteria for you.
Well, I don't want to be exploited though. Like as a master's student, should I be expecting more than 20 bucks an hour?
To answer your question, I'll just give you a range. So if you are in Colorado, you can expect anything between 25 to 35. It's generally if you go in California, the living expenses are quite huge. So you can start, the range starts from anywhere between 37 and it can go up to 45, 50. Depends. But as a master's student, yes, that's that. Colorado 25 to 35, and from California you can expect from 35, 37 and onwards.
And career services can help with that. We can help you negotiate, we can help you figure out how much you're worth. We can take into, like if they're giving you a company car and a lot of vacation time and paying for all your health care, you're gonna make less an hour, but you're saving, right? So we can talk through all of that because to their points, it absolutely is gonna vary.
Wait, sorry, could I have the rest of the...
Again, I can give you a range. It can be anything around 35 to 60. I've seen 60.
Can I ask what you made?
I cannot tell you that, but it'll be around 50-ish, around that range.
50-ish? Okay. And this was an internship program that you did with Facebook?
Yeah.
And
And
then
they they also gave us housing and transportation was free too, and the food was free too. That's just the Facebook thing. I think when Google does that, I think when Yahoo does that. But if companies in Colorado, I'm not pretty sure they give you housing. Food maybe, but transportation and housing, I don't think so.
Your internship, that was in Menlo Park, you said, or you just visited Menlo Park?
So like for the DevOps project, I was in Menlo Park for a couple of weeks. So my internship was of 12 weeks. So say 2 weeks was in Menlo Park and the remaining 10 weeks was in Texas.
Oh, Texas?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So from people that I know that have worked in like Salesforce, Workday kind of places, their summer internships ranged in the like 40 range, even for here in Colorado. I don't know how that goes like across the bar. I was definitely like well below that, but I would say 20 would probably be on the. I shouldn't be the one setting expectations, but I would say 20 would be kind of like on the bottom end for a master's student.
I don't have pretty much to add to this because they already shared so much statistics. Like Akshay said, for Colorado State, he's given a range. For California, he's given a range. But I can say anything between 25 to 35, and if you are doing an internship in Colorado, since I did in Colorado, I would say that's more than sufficient. And I was able to pay off my, obviously, living expenses, and on top of that, about 70% of my fees for this semester. So I think it should be pretty good.
I wouldn't suggest this, but if money is something really important for some students, and it can be, you can have multiple offers and try to negotiate your pay accordingly. That's one of the options you can explore.
Could you please talk about your interview experiences for internship? I mean, what goes in each round, like technical round, then coding round, and then managerial round? And specifically for networking subplan, because yeah, I'm opting for that. So as a network engineer person, how much programming you're supposed to know? It should be like high level. Are you supposed to know algos and all? So like some insights.
So for Facebook, actually, so I mean, even before getting Facebook, I did go through a few other Python coding rounds or interview rounds. For programming, they usually, what they want is basic understanding of Python, and by basic I mean the data structure, like, list and dictionary, understand that. They usually ask you to do very basic coding. It's nothing complicated.
What about algos?
Sorry?
Algorithms.
Algos, one of the company did expect, like for Jump Trading was one of the companies that I interviewed for, and their interview, like coding questions did require algos. But even then, like, you can crack it, you can try answering it, but other than that company, I've never really seen algos being asked anywhere else. And they also, for me at Facebook, they also like, so my interview, the coding round was for an hour. So the first half was the Python coding, and the second half was Linux basic questions on Linux. Then the second round was technical round. They were specifically looking for BGP and MPLS kind of knowledge, and so most of my questions were around BGP and MPLS, and also basics of layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. And the final round was the manager round, where it was just behavioral questions. But before all of that, you will have a phone screening with the HR, just generic questions. It can be sometimes generic technical questions, but it's not very difficult to crack those.
So for me, particularly, I'll go with Versa. I had 3 rounds. First round was the pure Python programming. It was a 45-minute round, and I had 3 questions. All 3 were, I can say, not that difficult. 2 were of easy type, and 1 was of medium, I can say. But definitely, you don't need to understand in depth about algorithms, so don't worry about that. But I'd say that you need to know all the data structures in and out thoroughly, and you need to basically understand the main part of cracking a Python interview is about how you have to basically show your interviewer what is your thinking and how you are going with the solution. So be loud and always be vocal about what you are trying to do there. If they do not understand how you are approaching that problem, even though you are right, or you might not be able to crack that. So that's that. Second interview was about, again, networking, pure networking. So it was all about L2 and L3. They asked me a basics of BGP, but mostly it was about OSPF, and it was about EIGRP, and L2, it was all about STP and MST. And then when you go to the last round, it's all about the manager and a couple of higher management people, and they are sitting, and then they give you a topology and they ask you to troubleshoot. So those were the 3 rounds. So I guess you should be good with Python. You should know how to script with Python, but don't worry about algorithms as of now.
So I can only answer from the network security or cybersecurity point of view. I think Python is a must-have, because even for SOC roles, they are nowadays asking for automation. So Python is something which you must have as a basic, but then if you're looking for something specific, you need to have a lot more coding knowledge than I would say network engineering people. If you're targeting roles like web application security in particular, you need to be familiar with the languages used over there, SQL, PHP, JavaScript and stuff. So at least that have been my experiences in my interviews. Python is a must-have, but if you're looking for something very specific, say you want to do pen testing or code reviews and stuff, you need to have multiple languages and like fluency, because what usually happens in cybersec is very few people are hired who are like specifically from a cybersec programs like us. They look to have mostly comp science people because they have a very good understanding of coding, and then cybersec can be taught on as an add-on. So for like, I would advise people who are pursuing cybersecurity to have at least Python, a working knowledge of Python scripting. And if you have something specific in mind, like you can just research and network with people and look for what they need specifically.
For me, the main part of the interview was I agree with the thought process. So the questions weren't super technical; they were kind of more high-level, open-ended. He had one of the questions was more of like a philosophical kind of like brain puzzle question, just because he wanted to see how I like thought through it, kind of like if I explained vocally or if I like whiteboarded, and just to kind of like follow along like how I tackled problems that I didn't know how to handle. So. But besides that, I definitely second having a good knowledge of data structures is kind of like a baseline of whether or not like you're familiar with the language at
all. For me, like I'd mentioned earlier, from the 6 call-ups I'd got, I had experience of like going through not more than 2 rounds. Specifically to Cable Labs, again, I had just 2 rounds. In the very first round, it was just a phone interview, and he had given me a problem statement, and then it was like a shared screen. So it wasn't like I had to compile and show the output. He just wanted me to make a rough code out of in whichever language I was comfortable in. I can even tell you the problem statement. So he had given me a problem statement of needle in a haystack. And he had asked me, you can do it using either C, C++, or Python. I chose Python because I was more comfortable. After that, I was then called on-site. Their office is in, Cable Labs office in Louisville, Colorado. So it was a 4-hour interviewing session on-site, and there were 3 interviews. So the very first interview was with my manager, and he tested me on wireless concept. And then second guy, he didn't even ask me a technical question. He just gave me a puzzle question to solve. And so even I can tell you the problem statement was like, if you wind a string around a circular body, and then related to that. So length of the string and winding the string across circular body. And I didn't know there was this was a famous like interview question. There were like actual discussion on this on online forums. So you can just go online and check for it for yourself. And the last guy, he tested me on networking concepts, but not core networking since I wasn't interviewing for a core networking role, but whatever I learned from the data communications class, that helped me to answer those questions. So yeah, just after 2 rounds, then they made a decision. That was for me.
All right, we have time for one more question and we'll wrap it up. We'll go in the back there.
How important is it to learn any other language than Python, say C, C++, again from a network engineering perspective? So in network engineering, when you talk about coding, all you're going to do is, at least if you're not working for OEMs, OEMs are original equipment manufacturers like Cisco or Juniper. Basically, if you are working for those companies, you will have to understand C, because C is implemented in hardware, and that's what they do. They develop routers and they develop their code which goes on the routers and goes onto the switches. But apart from all other companies, all other product companies like Google, Facebook, or even Versa for say, you need to just know about Python. That's all, because that's all they use for network automation and for system test. So I guess you should be good with Python. But if you have a knowledge of C, yes, you open to more development roles, you open yourself. But I am not sure if in an internship opportunity, anyone will give you a development opportunity if you are not from CS background.
Good. All right, let's thank our panelists for and that's it. If you have any questions for them, you can shoot them an email. Please, if you have any questions, you want to book an appointment with Ray, you have Ray's contact info. And that's it. Any questions for me? Come on up.
Do you have any assignment on this?
Ask you a question. I don't